talking and stuff, I've talked about this before on the show where I don't want to do too much catch up, obviously,
Oh yeah,
before
totally.
before it actually all starts going on. I just gotta check the levels and stuff. What was going on with your end? What did you figure out
I
what
have no idea.
happened? Or?
No idea what happened.
Okay,
Yeah.
but but
I
we're
just
all good
rebooted the
now.
computer and it seemed to be fine. So
Your hairstyle. What would you say? What would you say this to? Is I feel like this is Stray Cats.
yeah, I mean, like it does kind of have a bit of that vibe. I and
Okay.
the kind of the inspiration was David Lynch, honestly.
Okay.
So I think David Lynch has like really cool hair, but his is so I don't know, like it's sort of chaotic, but it's so cool, and I it's too hard to mimic the chaotic coolness, so it ends up being a little bit more strictly, I guess, a bit Stray Cats, if you will. Yeah.
Very cool. Always so stylish, and it's great to have you with us tonight. Uh, in the utility room with us is Mr. Chris Hewitt, um, DJ, club owner, promoter, celebrity from
Not celebrity.
Alberta. Yeah, to me it feels that way. You were just what did you just do with CBC? What just happened?
Well, they've been coming to me quite a bit to talk about all the stuff that's been going on with like live music venues with federal and provincial funding. Because I mean, obviously, as well as many people in the industry, that's pretty tough times right now. So they keep talking to certain people in the industry, I guess, but they have been coming to me quite often. I don't know. Maybe I'm their in, I guess. I'm their window into our world in Calgary or something, which has
What
been kind
what
of
what was it? What was it that you think that became that route for insight for them? Do you think that they
I
reached
can
out
tell
to you?
you for sure what it was.
Okay.
When this all started, just over a year ago, we closed. I chose for us to close voluntarily before all of the general shutdown was a thing, which was because I just felt like it was clear that things were going to get pretty bad pretty quickly, and I didn't really feel like it was responsible to stay open and have customers and our staff, in there, circulating with all this stuff going on because we had a live show, a local live show happening. I think it was the Saturday before everything went really wild, and it was the bands were great and everybody was nice, but we were all aware that something was going on, and we just didn't really know yet because it was still unfamiliar to us. And then, but that night I watched, everybody, the bands are playing and the fans are there watching, and but they're all over each other, like they're having fun, they're dancing and singing and just being around each other so much. And I was like, this is just going to get worse and worse and worse. So, we decided to close voluntarily. And as soon as we did that, the media was very interested in the choice of a voluntary closure because nobody had done that to that point. Now, to be fair, it was 2 or 3 days later when the province then mandated closure for everybody. But because we did it first, like CBC and Global and the Herald, like everybody wanted to talk to me because that's kind of an interesting story for them. And then we reopened for a little bit for Pride Week in Calgary in September, and did some very limited business for a couple of months, but then the cases started skyrocketing here again. So then I chose to close voluntarily again. Then the media was like, we got to talk to this guy. What is he thinking? What's going on? Why is he closing when nobody else is? And what's his plan? And I wasn't doing it for media attention, but it did seem to go that way. And then once they start to come to me for these things, I think that they wanted to keep chatting about things that are related to it because it's they don't necessarily have an instant window into this sort of world. So I guess I became a good person for them to talk to.
That's just like it's kind of crazy how that turns around in an idea where it's not really a marketing thing. Is it because you're speaking on behalf of a group of people, an industry that's in your section, your quadrant.
Yeah,
Um, but it's not like, hey, come to Dickens, rock out with us. It's gonna be wild. It was more like you can't come. I'm,
yeah.
I'm here. I'm here. I'm
This
here to
isn't a
tell.
good
I'm here
time.
to tell
Let's
you you
not do this
can't
right now.
come.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And
yeah.
and
Which
and
is weird.
yeah, because it's kind of like it's the opposite. That's why.
Opposite.
Is
It's
that
so
what
hard
is that
because
what we're in right now?
I'm
Or
used to getting people like come down, come down, come down all the time, and then it just got to a point where I felt like this feels wrong. Like inviting everybody to come down here and do this and do that and promoting things, it just seems so messed up right now when it's so the exact opposite of what we should be doing.
yeah, and I mean the information is it's like this it's this massive change. What we knew on Monday is different perhaps by Friday, and we've got to roll with these punches, and maybe that's where a lot of the frustration is coming from for a lot of people. Is I don't know if we marinate in the things that we become used to, and that seems what we would call normal, and then when something ends up changing, it's a wild thing to all of a sudden adapt, and that's what this whole year has been. It's just been constant adapt, 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 and I'm
Yeah.
not quite sure if everyone, if I'm sure everyone's going through it, but it just feels like here in Canada, it's
Yeah,
been
right now, especially Alberta right now I mean, we're in an absolute embarrassment over here right now. It's shocking. It's shocking. The worst per capita caseload in North America.
is
It's
that
just,
what it is?
oh, it's not even close. I mean, everybody, at first the story was like, oh, Ontario's in trouble. We left Ontario behind ages ago, where I think we're double Ontario and triple the national average here now. Worst in North America. Like, it's shocking.
Oh, man.
I don't know. I think that people are, yeah, I mean, certainly people are a bit tired of it, but that doesn't really, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's unfortunate. It's not, I understand that people are tired of it, but like, COVID itself doesn't care. it's 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 coming regardless of how tired you feel of it.
It
So
it is. It's the phantom menace of our lives currently, right? So,
yeah.
but I'm thinking to myself that throughout all this, you must be considering what might be when all this is no
Oh yeah,
longer our primary concern.
for sure, for sure. I mean, I don't. I mean, a year ago it seemed like I remember at the time when we first closed, I said I won't be surprised if we don't reopen until September. And I even said to a couple of people, I won't be surprised if we don't reopen until September 2021. Because the cycle for our business is weird. Like in the course of a year, we do because we have no patio. I know you've never been there, but we're underground and we have no patio. Calgary's a big patio city because our summers are short and the winters are not particularly pleasant. So Calgary loves their patio. So when you have no patio, you have to have really interesting shows going on to get people to come down. So for us, touring season dries up, in the cold months because bands can't drive around Canada in January and February.
Chris, do you have headphones?
I do not. Is that a problem?
It might be. I'm wondering if there's a delay or an echo that's happening. I need some confirmation. I'm hoping.
How would we get confirmation?
No, no. Any headphones at all? Any old headphones will do. You're
Uh,
a DJ without headphones?
well, it's not that I'm not sure. Just a sec here. I'd have
I
to
know
plug them
you've
into
got
my.
headphones. You must have headphones.
Okay,
It would be
you're
wild
gonna
for me.
have to.
Go ahead,
You're
do your
gonna have to give
thing.
me a sec.
I
Okay.
yeah, nothing that can't be edited out. No delay. Well, just to make it totally awesome. Thanks, Tom.
We also have wired ones in here. I don't want to go on camera.
Hey, you know what? I heard that there was no delay, Chris. You can sit on down. We have someone watching the show and they've already sent a message in. How about that?
Oh, you're saying it's fine?
They're saying it's fine, which is
Okay then.
which is important. What's the T-shirt? What do you got on? What do you got? What are you sporting?
Twin Peaks. That's my. I mentioned David Lynch earlier. I'm a big fan.
Is it?
That's
Do
where it
you
comes
do you do you consider yourself to be like a media fan, or specifically music? I mean, like
from.
what?
I like it all.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Um,
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you about some stuff tonight. I wanted to talk to you about what you thought about the rules of music.
The rules of music.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about the rules of music. I wonder about this sometimes, that we go places or we encounter a new genre, a certain style, and that there's all these things that are associated with it. You know, it could be clothing, an attitude, just a way of being. And I was wondering about these rules of music and the tastemakers that made it so. And coming from an era where music wasn't multi-format, it didn't have a ton of support. It came out, you know, there was two or three vehicles perhaps that we could literally become tangible with. Would be the music itself, obviously, and then maybe a magazine, say a copy of Rolling Stone if there was an interview or something else. And then what would be the third? What would you say? Poster on the wall, a T-shirt that you'd be wearing,
Yeah, I mean that's the shirts are coming from the shows usually, so certainly the actual live music experience itself.
and then there would be an
I mean,
identity associated with this. Obviously, I mean, and if we became really one with it, say for example, a raver, you know, how
mhm.
could we identify a raver if we were going to Shoppers Drug Mart to pick up some shampoo?
But that's a very specific question. But I think the divisions were a lot clearer before than they are now, and I think that's because the music is just more readily available to people now. It's so easy to get your hands on stuff, and I think it's easier to like different things because of it. I think you maybe dug a bit more into the culture before than you do now. I mean, you used to have, like when we were in high school, there was like the metalheads. If you knew who the metalheads were, and you knew who the punk kids were, and yeah, I mean, and in the later years, you could see the ravers pretty clearly and that sort of thing. But I think now those lines are a lot more blurred. But I think that's a good thing. I think people like different things now. So
Is it? Do you think that accessibility has changed identity and perception? Then
a little, I think because people don't necessarily identify as strongly with one type of music as they used to. I mean, there's certainly still people that predominantly like the metal and stuff, but I think because the accessibility of the music is it's so much more widely available to people through so many different means that I think it's easier to get into more different styles. I mean, before you had to buy albums to get into it. I mean, you could listen to the radio, but the radio didn't give you a vast, array of things. For the most part, it was fairly safe, specific radio play. But now you can just sit in front of your computer and blast through endless amounts of Spotify or YouTube or, TikTok videos or whatever, and you can get exposed to all kinds of different things. And you can really find that you might like those different things in a way that you just couldn't do before without actually buying the product itself. And that gets expensive.
so, do you think that exploration now is greater because of the accessibility, or are we taking the time with what we're
I
consuming?
I mean, true music lovers will always take the time, and I'm sure you always have. I still do. I'm still crazy for it all the time. I'm looking for different things all the time, different styles, and I love it. So a music lover is always going to take the time. I mean, I do think, I suppose, in this era of Spotify, people own less music for sure. I'm sure than ever before. I mean, they just stream it now. But I think that they maybe get exposed to a little more because it's easier to be exposed to it. But it's brought to you. I mean, maybe the fact that it is brought to you so easily makes you less inclined to hunt for it because it's just delivered to you so simply. So I don't know. It's tough to say really. I feel like the people that I know that do listen to music, they do like a wider array of it. But I think maybe also because of the way it is so available, it doesn't you don't have to hunt as hard, I guess is probably the truth of the matter.
What about playlists? Do you find yourself involved with playlists? Are you adding playlists, following playlists, making your own
Mm,
playlists, and trying to get people to
No,
follow?
yeah, not really. I kind of just do my own thing, and I have just mountains and mountains of music all the time. But I can't say I really tend to playlist it much. But I have been DJing quite a lot on Twitch, so it's enabled me to get to play. I mean, I'm sort of playing these playlists like live for a lot of people, different things that I like, and you can tell from the different types of shows that I've been doing on Twitch that my interests are all over the place. Like it's not like, oh, Chris just likes this. It's obvious that I'm all over the place, and I want to bring that to a lot of people as well because I think that I have a show that's all Britpop from the '90s and stuff, and and modern UK stuff, and I have a show that's all '80s, and I have a dark electronic industrial EBM show, and just did an old school hip hop thing a couple of weeks ago, and you know what I mean. Like I like all these different things. I mean, I would close to equally. I know not everybody is going to like all those things, but I know that there's lots of people that like some of each of those things, and I think it's fun to be able to bring all those different elements to people as much as possible. It's one of the things I've enjoyed the most about this Twitch DJ in the last year, honestly.
But you never really stopped DJing, did you? I mean, it was something that you also did at Dickens, right? This was
Yeah. I mean, I obviously back in the day at the warehouse when you were there, lots.
oh, you're fast forwarding me, but go ahead, jump in. That's okay.
we won't touch that.
No, 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 no.
I
I mean, I'm gonna get. I want to get to it. I'm trying to.
But then
But
once,
hey,
yeah, and then it
here
kept
we go.
going with Dickens, of course, you know, and doing a sort of alternative type of DJ night that I've been doing for, geez, this year would have been 11 years I've been doing it for, and it's like it's once every, you know, 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever. It's never really stopped for me, and that was my initial interest in getting into clubs from the beginning. It was I just loved the music and I loved the DJing. It wasn't like I didn't sort of, you know, get out of university and think I want to be a club owner. I got a degree in sociology and thought, boy, I like DJing. You know?
Did you have a mentor?
Yes, I did actually. DJ Danny Diamond. He was the previous owner of the warehouse, and I used to go there on Friday nights, every Friday, and he was amazing. He was just so good, and he played such a huge variety of music, and I loved it so much. I went there by myself. I didn't go with anybody, but I had to go. And I danced so much. I sometimes tell people this. I would bring an extra shirt because I danced so much that my shirt was like soaked. I had to get another shirt to keep going. I loved it so much, and eventually I ended up, you know, things changed, and I ended up, you know, at that owning that place myself.
Yeah,
But
I was about to say, like,
just about.
what a story. I mean, from the dance floor and loving it to being like, I'm gonna buy this place. How did that happen?
Well, I mean, I was going there a lot, and I ending a lot of time up more and more time up in the DJ booth because you know I started to get to be friends with him, and we were chatting about stuff. And I was DJing. I mean, I should add, I had been DJing weddings and stuff for years after high school. I just, you know, like a lot of DJs, sort of got into that. On weekends, you go out, you DJ weddings, and you end up playing a bunch of crap that you don't want to play at all, and it's kind of torturous. And it
Come
really
on,
wasn't
you
my thing.
love the chicken dance.
No,
Yeah.
hate it. But every now and again, you'd get to DJ like a college party or something instead of just a wedding, and you'd get to play cool stuff, and you know, you get to like be part of what the young people were listening to, and that was always the best. And you know, they'd want to hear Daft Punk and stuff, and you're like, yeah, you know, this is like what I want to really be doing. But it just kind of stuck with me until I started going to the warehouse and then hanging out and up in the DJ booth and getting to see what a DJ does when he gets to play things that are really what I wanted to play. And then just as time went on and I got more and more sort of involved there just came a period of time when ownership was going to change, and there was an opportunity, I guess, for me. And I
Well, I mean,
took
like someone came to you. There was a proposition that was made. You didn't just be like, this place is for sale, I'm gonna buy it. Did you?
No, that's kind of too complex of a story really to get into on here, but um, for various
But
for
somewhere else.
for various reasons, it became available, and it was out there, and some of the other staff were considering it, and I definitely wanted it myself, and I ended up getting my hands on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is? Did you feel at that point that now as a club owner that you were part of the music industry? Did you feel that there was a separation? Because the warehouse wasn't just hosting DJs. You guys were like a band venue.
Yeah, I mean it's very similar to Dickens now, really. I mean but the warehouse at first was very different. The warehouse had always been like an alternative music bar, so it was, you know, 80s and industrial stuff and dark stuff. That was known as a goth bar, that kind of thing. The goths went there, and then downstairs there was a second floor called the underground, and it was really all punk and metal down there.
I remember that. Only
Yeah,
now do you bring up the basement. Do I remember?
yeah,
Just because I was not really ever down there.
yeah.
I think I
So
went down there
downstairs was
once
definitely
and
known for doing a lot of great live shows, and there was a lot of memories there. But whenever I took over that was when we realized that we had a special license there, because you may recall we used to stay open super late, but there was no other bars in Calgary that were able to do that. We had a special license that was a private club license
Was
that
this
let us stay
was
open.
this something that came with the venue? It was grandfathered into your okay.
Yeah, came with it. It was called a Class C license, and it allowed you to have members in there, and as long as you stopped serving alcohol at 2, you could stay open. And it had never been explored before. And whenever I got in there, I can't quite remember the exact source of the realization of this, but somehow we realized that we didn't need to close, and that this whole thing of dance music and DJs was just starting to become more and more of a thing. And one night we tried to do a late night, like it was after hours before it was even really called that. And we had Dom G, who you know, of course, and another guy, Paulie D, sort of a Calgary trance legend. And one night they played super late for us. It was a total experimental thing, and like it was like maybe 99 or something like that. It might even have been 2000. I can't quite remember anymore. And it went pretty well. It definitely seemed like there was legs there. So then we decided to start doing after hours on a more regular basis. And we established a Friday and a Saturday night crew that would play until like 6, 7, 8 in the morning. And it just took off like crazy. But it also had a secondary effect of really skewing what the warehouse had always been known for. Because it was always known as being a sort of alternative, dark, industrial sort of bar that the goth kids went to in good numbers, but its numbers have been flagging in recent years for so many reasons, whatever. And this was kind of a bit of a reinvention. And then I bought the bar, and we started doing this after hour stuff, and it became very seductive because we were getting 500 people a night at 3 o'clock in the morning. I mean, by Calgary standards, that's just unheard of. You know, that just didn't really happen. So it was absolutely wild the whole time. It was unexplored territory, and I think that was part of the excitement as well, is that you just didn't really know. Nobody knew what was going to happen, and it was all new. And DJs were a thing, and we started booking the local DJs, and then it was regional DJs, you know, and then it was Canadian, and then we started to go further afield, and we were flying in like UK and US DJs all the time, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger for sure. I mean,
Every
you know,
every
you've
every
been part of
week,
this.
every week, you guys
Yeah,
had headliners
every
that
week,
were rolling
every
through.
week. I mean, we had DJs at the warehouse, like, you know, we were the first people to bring like Dead Mouse, for example, to Calgary. Nobody had ever brought Dead Mouse before. We brought him, and it was people were going nuts. That was right at the height of. Now I should add at this point, I don't follow the scene that much anymore. So if I say anything now that doesn't reflect what's currently happening, that's because I've kind of lost touch with it a bit. But at the time, this was Dead Mouse's real time, you know, when he was really getting big, and we brought him in, and the crowd went nuts, and we tried to book him again the next day, and the agent said you'd have to offer 10 times what you paid him this time because you got lucky. And we were like, okay, well then, see you later. No more Dead Mouse for us for the rest of time. But I mean, we also had like, like Cosmic Gate and Gabriel and Dresden, and like so many of these acts that had like never been to Calgary before. And I still think about the time that we had you, the first time that we had you, and you played, and I was like, I don't know who this guy is. And you came in, and you just were so good. And I couldn't, and you didn't seem like you were bound by any specific genre. And I just had never really seen that so much before, because a lot of the DJs, we would have a trance DJ, we'd have a hard house DJ, and they would do their thing. And then you came in and you were just like everything, and who knows what it's going to be, and it's all going to be super cool and energetic. And that really made a big impact on me. And I'm not just saying that because I'm on here right now, but I greatly admired it. And we had you back continuously, and there was many times that would be like Chris's birthday party, or it's New Year's Eve. Who do you want to, what are we going to book? It's Halloween. Who do you want to book? I'm like, you know that I'm going to say I want to book Jello because it's going to be cool, and I don't know what's going to happen. And I like that. And I always wanted to try to incorporate that no holds barred approach to my DJing. And it still stands now, even though I'm not necessarily playing that kind of music anymore. When I'm going all over the place, you were an influence on that. And and it sticks with you. Those little things stick with you. You don't really realize it's happening at the time, but they stick with you. So anyways, I'm kind of going off here a bit all
No,
over the
man.
place.
Thank you. Yeah.
The
So
the stuff at the warehouse was interesting because that was at a time whenever like when it was growing. You know, you remember like the cigarette companies started to get involved and starting to put on shows, and the liquor companies, and they would rent out these giant spaces, and because they knew that there was money to be made, and we were still doing well, but there was much bigger and bigger competition shows going on. So eventually, it got to a point where the ownership of the building where the warehouse was changed. There was a new owner in the building, and he made it very clear right off the bat that he was going to want to see something significantly more sort of impressive and or mainstream and or something than what we were doing. He didn't really like the idea of this just primarily being an after hours place. He wanted to see something fancier.
that
And
mattered. It mattered. It mattered what the image of it.
yes, he really he this was at a time whenever people were throwing around terms like gastropub and all those, you know, sort of terms, and he just wanted to see something. He wanted a buzzword in there, and I was not going to be able to provide that because it's just not my thing. I'm not really interested in glamorous things.
After
I
hours
like
wasn't a
real
hot
things.
buzzword for you.
No, no, he wasn't happy with it at all. So it became pretty apparent that I was probably not going to be able to hang on to the warehouse at that point. And then the city and the police and everybody all got together, and the AGLC, the liquor board here, finally decided that our usage of the private club license, which allowed us to do after hours, they decided that we had been using that interpretation of the licensing with too much flexibility for too long, and they yanked our license. And within a week or two of me getting this new landlord who clearly wanted something from us that was going to be very hard to provide, the city and the liquor board and everybody got together and said, we're also going to yank your liquor license because you're not really interpreting its usage correctly. And I will say that that probably is true. The difficulty for us was that we had been doing it that way for 10 years and nobody had ever really said a word. They sort of accepted the way we did things because it was supposed to be a private club with members and with their guests only. We were pretty lax about, you know, getting people in there with memberships. That we were, you know, we probably should have been harder on it. But if we had done that, it would have been very hard to get people into the club to begin with. So I understand sort of why it happened. We sort of disagreed with the way they did it very suddenly with really no recourse. And once they take away your liquor license, the city can come in and say, well, because you don't have a liquor license anymore, we are now entitled to revoke your business license as well, because that's what this property is used for. So they took our business license too. And I had already bought Dickens at this point, considering that I might want to move my operations over there anyways. They came down there to visit me and said, this is a nice place you've got here. This is your new place. It's nice. So you should probably just forget about the warehouse in case you take them both down like an anchor. And I was like, okay, message received. I get the point. I don't have the wherewithal to really fight this. I probably wouldn't succeed. So it all ended up, it was unfortunate because the warehouse was legendary, but it did end up going out quickly and with unfortunately little fanfare. Its legend lives to this day, but it did end up going out pretty fast. Yeah, it was a weird one.
The whole thing. The discouragement though? It must have hit you, all of it coming at you this fast.
It was very hard at the time. It was very hard.
What did you do to pick up your spirits to recover from it and to move on and turn Dickens into something awesome sauce?
Yeah, it is a good question. I mean, it's a little hard. It happened. It did all happen so fast that it's a little hard to remember the exact process because when we knew that it was all over very quickly, and I knew that the landlord would probably get word of it also and probably wouldn't be that happy about it. We went in there right away and emptied out, you know, everything we could immediately just to make sure that we got our hands on, you know, things like the sound system. The sound system exists at Dickens to this day. The same sound system that you played on so many times, that's our sound system at Dickens now. But it's both floors. We took the sound system from both floors and combined it into one for Dickens now. So all the same amps and I don't know about the amps actually, but the speakers for sure. But
It's
it was
it's
tricky
great that you
because
brought that up. Actually, I want you.
yeah,
Can you stash what you've got going on? I felt like you were about to say something, and I'm interrupting you, which is something I try really hard to not do because
it's
I don't
okay.
want the thoughts to get lost, and that's what this stuff is all about: is capturing what you got going on inside of your head. Um, I have one story from the warehouse that I want to share right now tonight, and I want to clear it up with you right here.
Okay.
Okay? So I can't remember exactly when this was, and I'm not here to go and throw somebody under a bus because I'm still friends with this person and he's absolutely incredible. I love him. But sometimes when when you book me to come play at the warehouse, I had a really good time. And I brought this person with me and they were having a really good time too. And the booth was filled with good times. And this person ended up passing out up up against the amp rack and overheated the whole thing and shut down the
Oh,
system. And you came running into the booth and you were mad at me and
yeah, probably.
and I was party stunned. So
Yeah.
I was like, ah, and uh, this is why it didn't shut down because I was being silly in the booth with the levels and pushing the mixer past a place it couldn't be. It was because the person that I was with passed out up against that whole rack and overheated it. So
Yeah, block
I don't know if you
fans.
remember this,
Yeah,
but it was one of the things.
I
I
actually
was one of
don't.
the things. Okay, good, great. Yeah, at the moment, you seemed like you were gonna remember. You seemed like you were gonna remember.
No, it's fine, but things we had so many crazy things happen there. It really was.
That was my bad. That was my bad at the warehouse.
There was nothing
You
like it.
know.
We had like various DJs and lots of unusual things happen, shall we
Okay.
say? I yeah, I mean I
This
remember.
sounds yeah it sounds like for you you're like yeah right now, so I'm like I'm glad
Yeah,
I'm
I mean
not
it
top
just there
10
were so many things
like
happen that
oops moments there. That's great.
it's all good. It's all
Wonderful.
good.
I'm what was the idea when you grabbed Dickens? Because you told me that you had warehouse running and then you went to open Dickens, which you at that time knew was going to be different than what you were planning to do with or what you were doing with warehouse.
Yeah, I think there was certainly a sense that the warehouse building and its premises was not going to last forever. I don't. I think there was. I remember what happened now. There was a space next to the warehouse owned by a development company, a property development company, and they had bought the whole building from a landlord where we had our heyday when we were able to kind of do whatever we wanted. And these people said that they were going to let us stay there for a while, but there was certainly a sense that they were going to redevelop that particular property. So there was kind of a ticking clock. We knew we probably weren't going to last forever because these people were going to develop it. But then over time, they invested in another property nearby and we're going to build a giant tower. And they dug out the whole pit for this new tower. And then they ran out of money. I don't know, for whatever reason, it was mismanaged. So they had this giant gaping pit in the ground. And we learned, and it was interesting because they went bankrupt and had to sell off all their properties in a fire sale. And they got themselves in a lot of trouble because when you dig out a giant pit in the ground, where you're going to develop a huge tower, the area around it starts to slowly subside into the pit if you don't fill it in, which I didn't know. So all the buildings, some of the buildings that were nearby were starting to develop small cracks in their foundation because the land was starting to shift into this open pit in the ground. So there was a lot of pressure on them to sell off all their properties immediately and build a tower there. Like it was all really crazy at the time. There's a massive tower there now, but I still remember this story. It was all very elaborate, but because they got themselves into so much trouble and needed to sell everything off quickly, this new landlord came in and bought it for like nothing. And because he got it for so cheap, he was really, he's a mover and a shaker and was keen to make a big impact on things. And And that was when he sort of said, you know, you're going to need to make this more like something like a gastropub or a buzzword type of thing. And, you know, and it wasn't me. And I knew, and I think it was also just, I just wasn't going to be his type of person. And I think that was pretty obvious. I didn't really have a lot of money, and I wasn't flashy, and there was no ownership group. It was just me running around.
Is
So
that type
I
of thing
had
fuel for
Dickens.
you, Chris?
Sorry, what was that?
Is that type of thing fuel for you when you end up when you end up coming up against a wall like that? When someone's coming at you being like, "What you're doing is not it's not working. You got to go in this direction and do this." When stuff like that comes at you and it hits you, does that motivate you to adapt to what it is that you're hearing, or does it make you
No.
want to keep
Yeah,
your
I
vision
wouldn't.
and
I mean, I know what I'm good at, and I know what I'm bad at. And making things glamorous is something that I would be bad at. That's not me at all. So I know that I'm about like fun and real people, and you know, and keeping things somewhat underground and alternative. That's where I've always been, and I know that, and I know that there's lots and lots and lots of people out there that feel that way too. They don't want to be in, you know, glamorous club spaces or whatever. Some do, and that's totally fine, but that's just not my thing.
Right.
So whenever he says to me that's what he's looking for, right away, I don't think, okay, I will try to work with that. My first thought was, okay, we're not going to be able to work together. And I'm going to keep doing my thing because I know that my thing does have a foundation, but I'm probably going to have to do it somewhere else. So when I eventually got my hands on Dickens, and it was just going to it was just a pub. It was like a sort of an old man pub, you know, where there would be some people sitting at the bar on bar stools and some people on VLTs. I went in there and I thought, I don't want to do this exactly, but this space is great because it's underground and it's, you know, it's a little bit off the beaten path. So we can really do some cool things in here. And I thought, you know, I can really see bands being more of a thing here because bands were certainly a thing at the warehouse also. A lot of touring bands. We had a lot of mega shows in there, but the DJing in the after hours was real bread and butter. So I felt like moving into the Dickens space, the DJ thing was probably going to go anyways because it was starting to become so corporate and the money involved was so big. Even if the warehouses kept going, we wouldn't have been able to keep up. We
Are
would
you
have
saying
been
that the
priced out of
dance
the
music
industry for
stuff
sure.
was more
But
popular than
the band thing,
was the dance music stuff more
oh yeah,
profitable? It was. Was it because of
oh
less moving
yeah, for
parts, or
sure.
what? Why were those costs different, and why was the profit point greater?
Well, I mean, there was a number of reasons. um, DJs, I mean, I don't know what it's like now. I would sort of guess it's the same, but I mean,
Yeah,
for the most part,
I
DJs
mean, it's
have a
actually
fee.
no, it's not. It's entirely decimated right now. So yeah,
Yeah, well, now, yeah. But I mean, they have a fee, and that was it, right? Whereas bands, it's always a split. It's almost always an 80-20 split in favor of the bands, or it's an 85-15 split in favor of the bands after expenses. You don't really make a lot of money off bands.
I'm not.
You
Just
can't.
trying to figure it out though. So let's say, for example, that you get a DJ who comes in and the total cost for everything is $3,000. I'm just shooting something
Yeah,
out. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Say that that's the example.
yeah,
And if, for example, that that cost gets covered, and then perhaps whatever happens after is glory days. So the band comes in, you say they've got an 80-20 split. I'm just trying to understand this, by the way, but I'm saying, so
yeah.
is there a deposit that's made in advance for the band? Are they
Yeah,
just showing up and just grabbing from the door with you?
yeah. Well, I mean, you know, obviously, most of them will have an agent that will deal with a lot of this stuff. But I mean, a 50% deposit's not uncommon. But you know, when you have a good relationship with them, it's not super important. And they've played with you before, like they know they're going to get their money. But the thing is, if it's a $3,000, and think about this in the warehouse terms, say the whole cost was going to be $3,000, but we put 500 people in the room at $20 a head. That's 10 grand. We would make $7,000 off the door.
Okay.
But with a band,
Okay.
if the
Say
band
the band is the same thing, $3,000 deposit.
$3,000 and we make $10,000 off the door, um, our expenses, say our expenses for the show might be $2,000. We would be allowed to recover. Like, say if the band's fee is $3,000 and our costs are $2,000, that still leaves $5,000 left over. But the band then gets 80 to 85% of that. So they would get oh geez, four plus $1,000 of that $5,000.
But these shows, these live
Which would
shows,
only leave us with maybe $1,000 profit, right?
right?
You make your money off liquor
Right.
sales for a live
I was
show.
about to say. I mean, there must have been a
Yeah.
difference on the live shows that the bar was running.
Well, yeah. I mean, we would do liquor sales off, a DJ show or a band show, but you make way more money off DJs. And hip hop is actually the same. On the rare occasions that we do that, usually hip hop artist gets a flat fee. They don't get a split. So you can, and you can make pretty good money doing it that way as well. But as soon as it's a split with a band, which it always is, you will never make any significant money off the door. So that's why in the DJ days, you can make just way more money. There's no comparison. Plus we had after hours and, $3 for a bottle of water, $4 for a juice or a Gatorade, $5 for a Red Bull. Water was like 97% profit. So, there was just no comparison. The DJ stuff made a lot of money.
The nightlife scene, it's transient.
Yeah.
It's one of those things of where people are constantly going in and out, or just sometimes in and just out. How have you been able to navigate that? Because you haven't been transient. You've been static.
Yeah, I certainly, yeah.
Do you think that
I've seen people come and go.
All right, well, what is it that you think? What is it that makes your superpower super? Because being a fixture in the nightlife scene where it is transient and it is also the time thing, because you're in it for so long. Do you think that becomes a magnet?
I think for a long time I felt like it didn't. I think now I'm at a point where I have been doing it for long enough that people do find that somewhat interesting, and they maybe trust a little bit that what I'm going to do is going to be, fun and make sense, because I have lasted and a lot of people haven't. Part of it is that I'm not really a party animal. I don't really drink. You can burn a little bit, a drink here and there, but you can burn yourself out really fast being like that. And I think a lot of people leave the industry that way for that reason. But certainly, being stable and somewhat cautious and thoughtful, those are really the kinds of things that help. I have struggled sometimes because I'm not ruthless, and it's not an easy industry, as you well know. There's a lot of people out there that aren't super pleasant in this industry, but that's not really my thing at all. And sometimes it can be an advantage to be that way, to be ruthless, but that just doesn't really work for me. It's just not in my nature at all.
What do you think the choices are? What are the best choices that you made that helped stay alive, help make you stay alive?
Well, when I bought Dickens, there was a young woman working there who I immediately befriended, whose name is Amber. And long story short, our friendship grew to the point at which I eventually married her a few years ago. And I made her general manager very early on in the Dickens process, right? Like very early on, within the first year or year and a half or something. And she's extremely good at it. And I think for me, in terms of Dickens, that was the best decision that has been made there for sure. She just really knows what she's doing. Like, she's efficient, and she works hard, and she makes sure that staff are well taken care of, and she doesn't really leave any gaps. She's just really good at it. And I had never really had, apologies to any other possible past managers that might be listening, but I'd never had a manager this good. Like, not even, there's no comparison. Like, it's just way beyond anybody else. So I think for me, that really showed me, like, it freed me up to do more of the things that I know that I'm good at, because I know there's lots of things with regards to this industry that I'm not good at, but I've always said it's really important to know the things that you're bad at. so that you don't spend a lot of time messing about with them. There's certain things that I just don't like doing. And I'm not saying necessarily, that Amber loves doing them, but she she's just able to navigate certain areas a lot better than I can. But I think as a team, we, are sort of the two halves of what make this work right now in different areas. So there's no decision that I've made in the last 13 years of Dickens that's been better than that one for sure.
Wonderful. Do you think that throughout our conversation tonight, the one thing that's obvious is how much you love music and the passion for it. Do you find that there's a similarity amongst other venue owners in the city as well, or do you come across other venue owners that you've connected with that are also sharing the same passion?
You can really tell which ones do feel the same way about the music and which ones are in it for the money. You can tell like very, very quickly because most of the time the ones that are really in it for the music are it's a real uphill battle. It's not easy. You don't generally find live music like venue owners that are doing touring bands. Like it's one thing to be doing cover bands and stuff, but the venues that are really doing actual real touring bands, none of them are, driving fancy cars and have like a vacation home and this sort of thing. Like it's a really tough business, but you can tell the people that are in this industry for the music, they're lifers because they love the music and they can't. That's like it's in you in a different way. There's a lot of people that maybe have successful bars and stuff that are in it for the money, but they're not necessarily boots on the ground type of people. They're not necessarily there every day. You can just tell the vibe is completely different, and they're probably financially they're probably better off than we
Is
are
this how you
for
would
that reason.
describe yourself, though, as a boots on the ground operator?
Yeah, I mean, I'm there. I'm there whenever we're busy. I'm washing dishes. I actually quite. It's a strange thing. I've said this. I like washing the glasses, and there's a reason. There's a very specific reason for this. When we're busy at Dickens and things are going off, I like washing the glasses because it's a very specific, defined task for me to do that I can then do and complete and keep moving. Whereas a lot of the time when I'm doing stuff related to Dickens, I'm inventing things and I have to try to come up with a sort of intangible concepts or there's not specific rules to what I do. That gets really tiring. It's nice to sometimes just be able to wash the glasses and know that that's what I have to do. Just keep doing it. If you, I mean, and it's a very sort of specific metaphor for a lot of things about Dickens. I think I don't like it when it's sort of like, you know, go and figure out what's wrong with this unusual problem that we've never had before and create some new rules to fix it and get permission for something. I'm like, oh, can I just wash some glasses? I don't really want to do this right now. It happens sometimes though. You got to deal with everything, of course, but it is nice to do that. But yeah, boots on the ground is an important thing. I think if you're in there at your venue and you're really involved in what's happening and you get to know everybody, that's a different thing that not all venue owners will necessarily have. And you can tell the difference. And I mean, I'm DJing. I'm still the DJ there for whenever we do our, 80s and alternative music nights and stuff like that's just me up there. It's not. I'm not sharing it with other people or farming it out to other people. I don't even want to. I like to do it. That's the thing. That's still the thing to this day that I like to do the most.
If you had the opportunity to play any set that you wanted at any venue, what would that venue be?
What would that venue be?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the thing is, I want to play for the people that I know, and the people that I know are going to be at Dickens. So I wouldn't want to play at some giant club somewhere or whatever. I just want to play. I want to be, at my place in my space with the people that I know there, filling the place up, and and watching them all. You know what it's like when everybody's doing this. Everybody's dancing and they're just jumping and jump. The whole room's going like this. That's like the best feeling.
Do you have a venue from the past that you love so much that you had a form of influence that you brought into what you were doing at Dickens?
Hmm. I mean, aside obviously from the spirit of the warehouse, of course, was brought over largely. Was there anything like anywhere that I used to go
Yeah.
to? It's an interesting question. I mean, there were a couple of cool spots in Calgary that I kind of admired, I guess. I'm not sure if I could really say that I brought a lot over from them. There was a place called Venom back in the day that was a bit similar to the Warehouse, pretty sort of dark, kind of industrial-y kind of place. It was the same, is this right? Same property manager as the Warehouse way back in the day. And that was actually one of the reasons the Warehouse started to get into trouble, was because this Venom place was doing quite well. It was taking customers away from the Warehouse. They were kind of cannibalizing their own business a little bit. It got them into a little bit of financial difficulty for a while, but it was a cool place. That was I mean, I guess the Republic was always very admired here because of the live music element. They had a lot of classic band performances there and stuff like that, and it was always very sort of underground and alternative, which I thought was cool. And I think there's maybe a bit of that spirit as well. I didn't go out a ton though, beyond the places that that I sort of have already mentioned.
So what was it that you had in your mind? What were you dreaming up? A place that you wanted to go to, and then everyone likes what I like?
No, I would never think that everyone likes what I like at all, for sure, because that would never work. I mean, it's like, as a DJ, if you just play your own favorite songs, you're not going to last long. I mean, you have to entertain the people, and you have to be able to tap into what it is that they like. So, I mean, it was pretty obvious to me that there was certain, elements of things that I liked that I could, tap into and work with. But I mean, I guess there was a little thing that I was going to say a while ago. Oh, it was whenever you mentioned me going to get my headphones, I got distracted. There was a sort of aside that I was going to mention there. What I was saying, when I first bought the place, I was quite young and I didn't know what I was doing. And I was not popular. Like, the people, this new staff, the customers, they did not like me because I was changing things and we were shifting into this after hours thing. And it was very alienating for the industrial and sort of goth community. And I know that to this day. And I was very seduced by the money that was available to me with the after hours, because it was going really well. And we did lose the sort of dark alternative vibe that the Warehouse used to have. But to be fair, it was really starting to fizzle and fade away anyways, because it just, times change. I mean, as you said, times change, and the music and the interests that people are going to have are not always going to be the same. And that sort of 80s and 90s dark alternative vibe is not really the same as it is today. There's still a vibe of that today, but it's not the same. And at that time when it was changing, I did alienate a lot of that crowd, and I still was interested in it, but we needed the money and we needed to survive. And the blasting sort of 500 person a night attendance of these DJ things dwarfed what we were getting otherwise. It was just so much bigger. So in terms of saying, like, what are the things that would have guided my interest in forming these venues, I always kind of knew where my interests lie. And I knew that there were, smaller communities that would be interested in all these different things, but they're not always running neck and neck in a race. Like, they're not always going to produce equal results for you, I guess. But now we're at a point where we're seeing some of these things coming back a little bit again. Sort of dark electronic music is on a real rise right now with bands like Trust and Boy Harsher, and I don't know if you have any interest in this kind of music, but I mean, there's a lot of them out there right now. Actors from Vancouver, like post-punk bands. There's a real rise of that kind of thing right now and again, and that's kind of good, because ultimately that's a little bit more where my interests lie. The DJ stuff I really enjoyed doing back in the day, but when I was at home or doing other stuff, I never sat around and listened to that music. I always listened to bands. That was always my thing. And now I'm able to be a little bit more in the circles that I want to be in, with the bands playing primarily at Dickens, and that's where a lot of our bread and butter is, because that's where my interest really truly lies. Depeche Mode and The Cure and New Order and stuff, like, those are always going to be the staples of the underground sort of 80s new wave scene and that kind of thing. And I think we've established that and have brought that through into the present day. So there's kids now that come to Dickens that dance to that kind of music and those songs, but didn't grow up with them. So they look back and they're wearing Joy Division shirts and stuff, but Joy Division was around 20 something years before they were even born. But that's kind of cool, because they partake in this music, and it's the first wave of this music for them. But we also have people that are like me in the 40s, and there's people in their 50s that go there because they look back on what it was like when they were in school. But they're all together in this new kind of thing now that's happening where it's just simply good underground alternative music, and there's new stuff as well that people are getting into now, and it's kind of a I think it's a kind of unique time for that right now that hasn't happened in a long time.
Awesome. What do you think is behind it? What do you think is the motivation for this music to have a bubble up?
I'm not totally sure exactly what it is. I mean, a lot of these musical cycles are somewhat cyclical, and we haven't seen a real rise in sort of darker synthy post-punk stuff. I don't really think of any real significance since the 80s, since it sort of originally happened. There's been periods of darker music, of course, but I think maybe I don't want to make it all sort of bleak and say it's the dark times that we live in or something like that, but I think maybe people enjoy the melancholy sounds that come from it's all minor keys and stuff, you know. And I think people, I don't know, maybe people identify with that a little bit more right now. And there's a lot of themes of, you know, sort of isolation and that kind of thing in a lot of these and this music that people maybe identify with it. But I don't think it's because it's depressing. I don't think it's that exactly, but it's just a sort of feeling that you get from it rather than just, you know, strict party tunes, you know. I mean, there's still a place for that as well, but I think maybe that's what people are finding a little bit right now. I want to believe that bands as a whole are coming back around again. I'm not sure if that's true, but we do still see, you know, at least when we were able to do concerts, a lot of interest in, I mean, a lot of, I guess maybe it's nostalgia. To some extent, it's nostalgia because, you know, a big seller for us is a 90s punk band. If we book a 90s punk band at Dickens, sells out instantly. Or a 90s like rockabilly bands, like I always reference Reverend Horton Heat. Huge in the 90s. We book a Reverend Horton Heat show, sold out. But 90s punk bands as well, like you find that if you book any of those kinds of bands, they're gone so fast. And I think people are enjoying looking back right now and times that made them, you know, happier. Even if that's a melancholy Depeche Mode kind of sound, they look back on the times that made them happy, and that's something that's working right now.
Wonderful. Wow. Here on Utility Room, I am constantly curious about this. You have 3 records. You adore them, you love them, they mean absolutely everything to you. You understand these pieces of music, and you rely on them to either light up your floor or rescue it. They never leave your bag, your USB key, your place. They're with you all the time. What are these 3 records?
Enjoy the Silence right away. Enjoy the Silence by Depeche Mode for sure right away. That's like Depeche Mode is the resolve all for the dance floor for me. Always when I'm DJing. But Enjoy the Silence is probably the biggest one. I think I would probably say probably, I guess, Blue Monday, probably by New Order. I mean, these are not like, I realize that these are obvious, but
No.
these are just ultimately timeless, and
Yeah,
that you
that's right.
can't,
Their foundation, their
they
blocks.
just, yeah, and they give you a vibe that you can't beat, and
They're today. They were yesterday, and they are today. I agree
yeah,
with you.
yeah,
Yes.
and probably this is, you know how you forget something that is so obvious to you. It's a Cure song, but I don't know why I'm blanking on this right now. It's possibly my favorite song, and I totally cannot remember the name of it right now.
Close to
Not In
me.
Between Days, but the other big one. I don't know why I'm blanking on it. But whatever that song is called, and I'm sure I'll remember in a little bit of time, I will tell you what it's
Just the Cure.
called. The Cure in general, yes, but
Just
for
the
some
Cure.
reason I'm totally blanking.
Right.
That's so weird.
I love it.
I
You're
think
not.
those would be probably the 3.
Are you recording what you're doing with your stream on Twitch? Do you have your stuff archived somewhere that people can go check out?
Yeah, well, that's a tricky thing. I don't know. Have you done much on Twitch at all?
So our show is on Twitch right now.
Yeah.
Twitch, Facebook Live, Periscope, YouTube Live, LinkedIn, believe it or not, Daily Motion. I think that I'm missing 1 or 2 things right now. And then after we do the stream, and it does get archived on those on those sites and apps as well, then it does go to podcast. So we're everywhere.
Right. But you
Yeah.
haven't been DJing so much on there, have you not?
No, I have. Utility Room
You have.
started with me just playing music,
Right.
and then it evolved into this. And I'm playing monthly,
Right.
sometimes 2 times a month, but mostly just 1 time a month on the show, which which is it's been obviously a whole lot easier. I did a strong I don't know what I don't know what the number is from March last March until last September, 2 times a week, every week.
Right.
And obviously new sets. I could say that to you that it's not going to be like, oh, that's surprising. Be like, yeah, of course. So it was always new, constantly searching for new music, constantly editing the music that I found that I loved, trying to create new edits of the stuff that I've already that I've done, or just it was like being on tour. It was really like being on tour, except I wasn't touring, but I was jumping out and going into some strange places across the city and just setting up and playing. And
Right.
I can't do that right now because of the lockdown, or I would. Still,
Right. Right.
I loved it. I didn't know I was going to love it that much. There's something really crazy and adventurous about just going somewhere and dropping a table and just going.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it wasn't about inviting people, because I mean, like in real life, inviting people as much as it was inviting people to be with me online. And I didn't know that the connection that I'd feel that way about it, way I'm feeling, which is that I love it. I haven't
Hmm.
seen you in I don't know how long.
Yeah.
So handsome.
Oh,
I love looking at you.
devastating.
And getting together with everybody has been great, one on one. And then also what ends up happening after the episodes in my DMs, connecting with a lot of other people that I don't know. And so I don't know if I had this type of connection. I don't know how many times I've used that word before the pandemic hit us.
Yeah. I
And
totally get
so
you.
yeah, so I'm adoring it. I think it's great.
Yeah. No, I totally know what you're saying. I haven't been we weren't archiving the sets really much at all. I have been doing it a little bit lately, but there's also the risk of copyright infringement. Unfortunately, there's
It's a big thing, and it's
yeah,
important. It's definitely
yeah,
important.
yeah. And I mean, the sets get start. There's bots that start muting bits of the sets. So and within 24 hours of my set getting put up, it's all gone. The bots just chop, 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 chop all the little bits until the end of it. There's nothing left really.
So
So
I have good news and I've got bad news, and I'm not going to say I'll bet you as soon as I start talking about it, you know exactly what it is I'm going to be talking about. But Mixcloud to me is the ultimate platform. I think it's tops, and all of those problems go away. That's the
mm,
good news. The bad
yeah,
news is that I'm not quite sure why Mixcloud isn't more popular. It seems like either people are unaware of the platform or they're aware of it and they don't use it. And I don't
yeah,
get it, because it's literally built to eliminate everything it is that we've just spoken about right now. If you want to go and play huge billboard hits one after another, you can, and your stream will not be muted. Um,
yeah,
and not only that, but their site is set up in such a fashion that it operates like a radio station, where the artists or the master holders of the music end up with a form of remuneration after you've gone and you've played it, because it gets documented. I'm not quite sure what algorithm pickup they're using, something along the lines of Shazam, so that even if
yeah,
you don't register the playlist, it still gets picked up and documented and distributed appropriately. And yeah, some of the sites are doing this too, but not in the same fashion that Mixcloud is. So I don't know if you knew everything that I just said to you.
I was somewhat aware, and I know some people have been using it. I think the unfortunate thing for me was when we started doing it back at the end of last April, I just didn't really know where it was leading. we just did it once and it was popular, and then we did it again, and then we did a couple of other things, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll just keep doing this a little bit. And I didn't really realize there was a copyright issue until many months into it, and they said, oh, you should maybe start to be aware of these things. And I was like, oh, okay, well, we're quite far into this now. And at this point now, we're 3,100 followers into it. Like, shifting that over to a new platform at this point, I I don't really know how it would be done. We would lose, I would think, 3/4 of our people instantly, maybe more. And also, people enjoy the little Twitch emotes and all these various things that we've established. I don't know. I don't really think that Mixcloud has they have a chat bar, don't they? I think still.
Yeah, when
Yeah.
the live stream on Mixcloud operates very similarly to how most live streams operate. I
Right.
can't say they're going to match the emoji action that's there, and I haven't spent a lot of time in the chats on
Yeah.
Mixcloud to give a full opinion on how it operates. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's close.
Yeah. I mean, it does look like it is somewhat close, and it's certainly possible that that's the way things will end up going. I don't know, but I feel like surely Twitch must see the staggering rise of DJs and the interest in general in the platform. They've got to be doing something about this, from a legal standpoint, I mean, if Mixcloud can get it sorted out, and I admit I don't understand the intricacies of it, and I'm not a lawyer, but surely if Mixcloud can do it, then Twitch can figure something out. There's got to be something you can do, or
Let me
even
ask you
pay for a
something,
license.
Chris.
I'd pay for a license, no problem. I don't care.
Right, of course. No, I understand what you're saying. Let me ask you something though. Is music $10 a month?
Sorry,
Is music $10 a month?
to buy, you mean?
Let's say you want music right now.
Yeah, I don't even know how much it costs. Like,
Are
I
you
buy.
are you not subscribed to any apps?
No, I don't. No, because I don't care about that stuff. I want to own it. I don't want it. I don't want it to be streamed to me. I buy so much music. Like,
What do you do to teach? What do you do about this tangible music once you've got it and it's in your hands? How do you convert it to something where you can take it with you? You're not walking around with a Discman or something, right?
no, no. But the thing is, I don't really walk around and listen. Like, music for me is like when I'm at home in front of the computer doing stuff. Whether I'm just messing about or I'm doing work or I'm playing computer games or whatever it might be. I'm listening to it there. And otherwise, it's going on to, like, I don't have it up here right now. My memory sticks, and then off I go down to DJ. So that's really, and the memory stick in the car. So I mean, you know, that's where it's being used.
So you're taking everything and you're making it digital so that you can.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not buying physical product.
Okay,
I'm
yeah,
buying,
that's what. It's okay, right? Yeah,
Oh,
because you
sorry.
paused and I
I
was
see what you're saying.
right.
Yeah, I'm not buying physical product. It's all digital. I'm buying it all digitally, but I'm still buying a lot of it, is what I'm saying. So
Yeah, I was definitely confused there, but that I get it. I get it. You and this is obviously. I want to say like you're like an outlier in that type of situation.
I know.
It's not.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah, awesome.
People subscribe. I mean, I just don't really want. I don't really want it just sort of fed to me. Like, I want to, because then I like to know what I'm listening to, and I mean, there's artists that I like, and I want to hear their material, and I don't want to just have to hope it comes up in a random playlist, so I can hear it. That seems kind of horrifying to me. So
Excellent insight into everything. That is Chris Hewitt, who's been with us tonight here in the utility room. Been great having you with us tonight, man.
it's been great being here.
Yeah,
Very fun.
thank you. Thanks for taking the time to do this with us and give us a peek inside of your thoughts.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having me. It was great to see you. I'm definitely somewhat curious about where you are. It's very mysterious.
I'm in my home. This is it. I'd have to actually leave the screen to make it brighter, but a straight up utility room.
Oh, it really is.
I'm
So
really in a utility room. Yeah.
in an actual utility room.
Yeah.
I can see. Is that a hot water tank there?
That
Yeah.
that it is. No,
Yeah.
that is the power humidifier, and the hot water
Okay.
tank is over here. And
Well, I'm impressed that you have a power humidifier.
you know, it's a big utility room, so I'm able to stretch out and
Stretch
be,
out carefully.
you know, and how often do you really get to speak to somebody from a utility room?
Never.
And
I've never done it.
and I don't want to tell people that we're underground. I really want to show them we are really underground.
Yeah.
Nearly 14
Exactly.
feet deep. Thanks for
I
being
buy it.
with us. You are absolutely
Thank you.
fantastic. Once again, Chris Hewitt. My name's Jello. This is Utility Room. You are absolutely awesome sauce. Hit the like, subscribe, do all the things that make it go, and we will see you on Saturday night. I got a DJ set, some new, some old, some classic, remixed, edited, and all of it going to make you rave. We'll see you at 9 p.m.